Hello, my name is Matthias, and welcome to the FPL Scope and this video where I'm going to go through every single game week so far this season and tell you how I managed to get 6 green arrows in a row and how I'm currently 64k overall as well in FPL. I've had a pretty good season so far, really happy with the start of the season, really happy with some of my decisions. I have also made some mistakes along the way, but I'm going to talk about those things as well and tell you how I'm looking forward to progress this season also. So I'm going to go through each and every game week from game week 1 all the way through game week 7. Tell you all about my thought process and how I view FPL and how I managed to get a currently pretty decent rank. You can also see my rank history, or some of my rank history at least above me. I have a pretty good track record of this game and I've played it for a pretty long time. As you can see, my best rank is 1348 back in the 2011-12 season. But even 2 seasons ago, I was in the top 10k. Last season, 53k overall. Not too happy with that. That's usually like slightly lower than what I hope for. I always hope to get into the top 10k, which is the same this season as well. And I'm already almost as good as my end of season rank last season with 53k. I'm now 64k overall, so really happy with that at this stage of the season. But how I got there is a different story. That's the story I'm going to tell you right now with the team that I had in game week 1, my team game week 1 selection, what my thoughts were going into that game week, and how it has progressed from there basically. So yeah, starting with game week 1, I'll start with some of the things that I got right in this team. I think first and foremost, the defenders for the most part are really good. I have a lot of DEFCON defenders, which was my idea. Having a lot of 4.5 DEFCON defenders. A lot of people went for like the likes of Tarkovsky and Mario and these guys that were already priced up to 5.5, but I tried to look for the next DEFCON monsters instead. Players that would get a lot of DEFCONs for teams that weren't as good as the Nottingham Forests and Evertons of the world last season, but could potentially be better this season. And I managed to do that, I think, a little bit at least with Fulham and especially Crystal Palace with both Joachim Andersen and Richards in my Game Week 1 squads. I also had Gabriel, who was not really a DEFCON player in my mind. It was just the fact that when the game launched and I saw that he was 6.0, I was just like, that's a super cheap price. I really want some Arsenal assets. I feel like people are sleeping on Arsenal as a team in general. People are making a lot of fun of Arsenal players and like the situation that they're in, having not won any trophies lately and stuff. But I've seen them the last few seasons and they have just been so consistently good in Premier League and especially in FPL as well. Defensively, they've been the best team by far. So Gabriel was in my team for game week 1. Really happy with that. He's going to be a season keeper most likely, it seems like, for now. Because not only has he been good in terms of clean sheets, he's also scored a goal and he's also gotten a lot of DEFCON points, which is kind of crazy because we didn't really expect that from him. So super happy that I've had Gabriel since game week 1. A bit bummed out that he only got his first goal after most people brought him in for game week 6 wildcard. But still, I've managed to get some gains from him, and I've had him since he was 6.0 in Game Week 1. Really happy with that. Defense in general, really good. Juf is the only player that has been like a bit like lackluster, I guess. Or Agbadu, I should say, it has been really lackluster. But Juf, I still have. He's actually gotten some assists as well. I think he's gotten like 4 FPL assists. So he's been pretty decent in that regard as well. But I did expect more from West Ham in general. I doubled up with Juf and Bowen. Felt pretty good about that. And lately, they have been working out better for me. And they have good fixtures from now on as well. So I hope that they will be good in the future. But yeah, my defense, really happy with. The one exception, of course, in this defensive line is Agbadu, who wasn't really that good because Wolves have been really bad this season. Not really something that I would have... something that I really could have foreseen as well because they sold their 2 best players. And yes, they are offensive players in Nori and Cunha, but like offense is the best way, or attack is the best form of defense sometimes. And they've just really struggled this season in general. And the player that I missed out on, out of the DEFCON defenders from 4.5, was Senesi, of course. He's been fantastic. Bournemouth have been better than expected. And Bournemouth were actually a team that I was targeting prior to Game Week 1 as well. I was in between a couple players. I had Senesi in at some points. I switched to Araujo, who I thought was going to start the season at right back. He didn't, but he was 4.0. I thought about him. I thought about Petrovic in goal. And I had like a pretty good, had pretty good hopes for Bournemouth in general this season until they sold Sabarni. Because people had just been saying like, oh, they've sold all their best defensive players. You can't really go for them. They also had Liverpool in Game Week 1, which wasn't the best fixture. But I kept having faith in them until they sold Sabarni, and I sort of went overboard and overreacted the other way, which is something that can happen in FPL as well. If you've like underappreciated an asset for a long time, you might overappreciate that asset once you like get some inkling that it might have been wrong. And that's what I did with the Bournemouth defense. I had pretty high hopes for Bournemouth defense, and then when they sold Sabarni, I was just like, yeah, maybe you guys are right. Maybe he is actually, or they aren't actually the best defense, but it was actually right that getting Senesi back into their starting lineup, getting really good signings in both Diakite and Treffert. They're really good at signing new players at Bournemouth, that would actually help their defense. And also just the fact that Petrovic is a better goalkeeper than Kepa, that's something that I've said the whole time, something that I still stand by. I should have seen that coming, and I should have had Senesi over Agbadu. But other than that, I'm really happy with my defense actually this season. The other exception is also in goal with my goalkeeper as Sells. Nottingham Forest were a team that most people were super high on before the start of the season, just because they had really good numbers last season. They were one of the better teams, but also they were a bit in turmoil. We saw that already in the summer. We knew that Nuno Espirito Santo was on borrowed time, and he was the main reason that they were so good defensively. So, yeah, could have easily gone for a different goalkeeper, but I was pretty certain with Sells actually for Game Week 1. I was pretty certain with Agbadu as well, for that matter. Gabriel is actually one of the players that I thought about potentially selling just because of the tougher early fixtures. But I'll get to why I kept Arsenal players like Gabriel and Gyökeres eventually. When it comes to midfield, not the best so far, actually. King has blanked in every single game week so far. He has started at least, but he was the 4.5 just backup player that was going to bench most game weeks anyway. Reinders had a fantastic game week 1 for me, but since then I haven't really gotten much use of him at all. He got 9 points against Arsenal, but I benched him for that game week and didn't use my bench boost, so I didn't get those points. So he hasn't really been the best for me either. Rodgers has been one of the most disappointing players this season. Palmer was injured straight away, and Salah has been pretty disappointing, but he has at least gotten a lot of points and actually been a decent captain option for me in general. But yeah, my midfield has not been the best. I've rectified that a little bit, as I'll get to in the other game weeks, but the start of the season wasn't the best for midfielders. I still think Palmer was a good pick. If he wasn't injured, I think he would have been really, really good. But the Chelsea cover to have would have been Joao Pedro at the start of the season. Speaking of Joao Pedro and attackers, I selected Gyökeres, Bowen, and Mateta as my front three from the start of the season. Didn't start that well initially, but it's actually turned out to be a pretty good decision in the end, at least like some of these players. Gyökeres we'll get to pretty soon as well. Actually, we can just go through it now and go to Game Week 2, because Gyökeres is someone that hasn't really lived up to the high expectations for him at the start of the season. But for me, one of the main reasons that I had him for Game Week 1 was the fact that I knew I was going to free hit in Game Week 3 anyways before the start of the season, because that was the game week where when Arsenal and Liverpool faced each other. I wanted to avoid that fixture, and I wanted to target some other fixtures, as we'll get to for the Game Week 3 team. But that meant that I could have some Arsenal players who would have much easier opening fixtures from the first like 4 fixtures if you just remove Game Week 3 from the equation, which is what I was set out to do before the start of the season. I was always planning to free hit in Game Week 3, and that meant that Gyökeres was a better option for me than Watkins, and he actually has been, especially considering what happened in Game Week 2, because that's when I planned to captain Gyökeres, which is what I did. He managed to get 12 points, scored 2 goals, 1 penalty in the end, and 1 goal. It was a bit lucky that I got those 2 goals, because we know now that Saka is probably the preferred penalty taker for them, but Saka was injured in that game, and Gyökeres got a penalty right at the end. So pretty lucky to get some points there, but I got 24 points on my captain this game week, which was really, really nice in Game Week 2. This is when Salah got 5 points. He got that super late assist in Newcastle. Haaland, who was another popular captaincy pick this game week, actually blanked. So Haaland is the other player that I could have had from Game Week 1 that would have been a lot better. But actually, I've outscored. Like, if I had just brought Haaland in for Game Week 1 and captained him every game week, I would have actually gotten less captaincy points than I have had so far this season. So captaincy has been a huge plus for me, and that was especially the case in Game Week 2, where Gyökeres got 24 points for me. Was the main reason that I had a pretty good game week in Game Week 2 to get back into the swing of things pretty early in the season. Because yes, one of the reasons that I did get 6 or have got so far 6 green arrows is the fact that I started off pretty badly. 6.6 million is where I was after Game Week 1, and then I went up to 4.7 million after Game Week 2, and most of that was down to Gyökeres getting those 24 points against Leeds in that 5-0 win for Arsenal. Really happy with that. Also, I started Dubravka just because I had if you can see on my bench here, I had Sells playing Crystal Palace this game week, and I had Mateta playing, so I didn't want to start Sells against my striker, and that's why I started Dubravka, and he got 6 points. So yes, Sells has been a terrible goalkeeper, hasn't really gotten a clean sheet so far, but Dubravka was playing at least in this game week, so I got some more points than I would have had originally. The rest of my team, not the best for this game week. But it was still enough with the captaincy for Gyökeres to give me a decent game week all around and bring me up to 4.7 million overall in Game Week 2 with 57 points in Game Week 2. Then, like I mentioned, Game Week 3 was when I always figured I would free hit. That was the plan going into the season. I made like a pretty good team, pretty happy with a lot of these players. Fabian Schär defensively should have had 2 Newcastle defenders because they set up super defensively this game week. Cucurella, one of the Chelsea defender, they did actually concede against Fulham and Josh King, who got his goal taken away, and I had Josh King not in my team, but he was in my squad originally. He's still in my squad, but I free hitted him out basically for this game week. The one big mistake that I made in the game week 3 free hit was the fact that I didn't go with the 3 Man United midfielders. So I didn't have Bruno Fernandes. So his late goal there in injury time from the penalty spot, which gave him 10 points, 20 points as the captain for a lot of people, that actually damaged me a lot because I didn't have Fernandes. I had Haaland as my captain. This was another reason why I wanted to free hit in game week 3. Just have Haaland for one more game week than most people who didn't start the season with him. And I was hoping he would do the business here against Brighton. He scored a goal and got 3 bonus points, so 9 points from him, but he still got less than Bruno Fernandes, who was one of the more popular players here. I should have just had Bruno Fernandes in general. Should have gone triple Man United midfielders. Instead, I went with Dorgu, who didn't play at all and was auto-subbed off for Alanga, who got 1 point in this game because he started on the bench. So yeah, that was the downside for game week 3, but 58 points was 18 more points than I would have had if I had just done my regular team, and actually could have been much worse as well, because if I hadn't free hitted here, I most likely would have used a transfer, because I had 2 free transfers available if I hadn't used a free hit, and one of those free transfers I would have most likely done Jared Bowen to Chris Wood permanently rather than just for this one game week. You can see I went pretty hard for Nottingham Forest players here. They had 2 pretty good game weeks before that, with 3-1 win against Brentford and then 1-1 against Crystal Palace in game week 2. And then they faced West Ham, who looked awful in the first 2 game weeks. So yeah, I tripled up with Wood, Milenkovic and Sels, and they got 5 points put together, which was really bad. Another thing that I looked at before the start of the season, which was why I was looking for free hitting in week 3, was the fact that Newcastle had a really good fixture in this game week. They were playing against Leeds this game week, but of course things don't always go as planned, because I originally, before the start of the season, figured out that I would have 3 really good Newcastle players for this game week against Leeds. That would have been Lewis Hall in defense, Anthony Gordon in midfield, and Alexander Isak up front. And for several different reasons, they weren't available for game week 3 when I actually got to it, because Lewis Hall has just been dropped for some reason. Don't quite understand why. He was so good last season, but maybe he's still recovering from injury. I had to go with Fabian Schär instead, who was on penalties actually this game week, but he didn't get a penalty chance. Gordon was suspended in game week 2 against Liverpool, so he was out for game week 3. And obviously Isak was also still on his way to Liverpool at this point, so I couldn't pick him either. So yeah, Man United and Newcastle had really good fixtures in game week 3. But didn't really have good fixtures before and after. That was one of the main reasons I wanted to go for game week 3 free hit. Also the fact that Arsenal and Liverpool faced each other, so I wanted to get away from the Arsenal and Liverpool assets that I had in game week 3 and bring in Haaland for that one game week. That was the other big reason that I did the game week 3 free hit. But in the end, 58 points, really happy with that as well. 2 million rank overall in the game week, which helped me get another green arrow. Pretty good game week, all things considered. And like I said, it also made sure that I didn't do any permanent transfers that I didn't want to do. I actually quite like that as an extra added benefit of free hitting in game week 3. The fact that you get one more game week of data to see which players you want to go for or not, which actually helped me a lot this season. Because yeah, I managed to go to around 2.8 million, I think, for game week 3. Or I think I just looked at it on my phone. So yeah, that was a pretty good green arrow as well. Then we get to game week 4, and like I said, I got one more game week of data, and I saw Semenyo just absolutely look amazing, even though he blanked in game week 3. He looked fantastic against Spurs, and he had those 2 goals against Liverpool in game week 1. He had an assist or something in game week 2 as well. Did a pretty decent score there. And then game week 3, where he had a pretty tough fixture against Spurs, just gave me another good indicator that he was a good pick to go for. So my first transfer of the season was bringing in Semenyo in game week 4. I sold Palmer, who was still injury doubt for this game week. He actually came on and scored in this game, so I sort of regretted selling him rather than selling Rodgers at this point of the season. But I did at least get in Semenyo, who got 13 points, took a penalty this game week. I got an assist as well, pretty cheap assist. So he got 13 points. 9-pointer from Gabriel. He actually got DEFCON points this game week, which is really nice and surprising. Anderson with 10 points, clean sheet and DEFCON points from him as well. Richards with a clean sheet. Salah as my captain with 9 points in this game week as well. Yucker scored a goal in Nottingham Forest, so really good game week all around. Top 1 million in the game week rank. If you do that consistently every single game week, you're going to be the #1 player overall, because that is a really good game week rank in general to get into the top 1 million. Part of that reason was the fact that I bench boosted. I got 82 points in total, but my bench boost was actually one of my worst decisions this season, just to bench boosting in week 4. For me, I figured just get it out of the way. I don't really mind the fixtures too much. I didn't really want to bench King against Brentford at home. That was the main reason why I bench boosted. Also the fact that I just had 4 starting players who were fit and ready to play, and I just wanted to get rid of the bench boost. That was the main priority here. Agbado against Newcastle was actually my highest scoring defender or highest scoring bench player. with 4 points. He got DEFCON points, so at least he managed to get that. So he got 4 points from that, conceded 1 goal against Newcastle. Geoff conceded 3 against Spurs, wasn't the best. King only played 59 minutes against Brentford in the end, so that was a big dud, getting 1 point. And Dubravka had 3 points. He was so close to getting like a double-digit haul here, because he played Liverpool, which was like not the best fixture, obviously. That's not the reason I had bench boosted. But I figured, like, what the hell? Maybe he gets random points somehow. But he was really close to getting those points. But in the end, he conceded a penalty from Salah. So at least I got some points back there from the captain with Salah with 18 points. But I would have preferred to have those bench boost points. Not only because it would have helped me in total, because less players started Dubravka than had Salah as captain this game week. Most people captained Salah against Burnley at home. That was like one of the main reasons people had Salah from the start of the season. But also because the bench boost would have been so much better if I had done that instead. If that had happened instead, I would have had an additional like 9 points from my bench boost, which was actually what I would have had the next game week in game week 5. This is where I should have bench boosted most likely. I did consider it as well, but the reason that I didn't bench boost was the fact that I had 2 West Ham players against Palace, and I had 2 Palace players, as you can see here on my bench, against West Ham. But what ended up happening in this game week was the fact that Geoff got an assist, Bowen got a goal, Mateta got a goal, and Richards got DEFCON points. So all of them actually got point returns. So I would actually gain more points from this. Also the fact that I also had Dubravka actually got 1 more point this game week with his 7 saves. And Reinders got the assist and 2 DEFCON points that he shouldn't have had against Arsenal, which was another fixture that I didn't really want to start him in. So yeah, Reinders with the 9 points here as well. If I had bench boosted here rather than the game week before, I would have had an additional 9 points. So that's just a missed opportunity. But again, I don't really like the bench boost. I've said this several times. I think it's just more of a burden, and now I don't have to think about it either way. But I could have just waited 1 more game week and I would have had 9 more points, which would have been really nice and helpful. But yeah. Still did 0 transfers at this point. Have only done 1 transfer up through 5 game weeks, and that was Semenyo getting in Semenyo, who got 13 points in the first game week I brought him in, 5 points in the second game week that I brought him in, and that was enough for another green arrow in game week 5. So yeah, the green arrow train keeps going. I went from 1.2 million in game week 4 to like 1.0 million in game week 5, so barely enough to get a green arrow. Would have been better to have done the bench boost in game week 5 instead. Got 9 extra points. I would have had a bigger green arrow. I still would have had 6 straight green arrows, but I would have had a bigger green arrow in game week 5. But then moving on to game week 6. This was the massive game week for me. As you can see, game week rank of 3,697. This is the main reason why I have such a good rank currently as it stands. And the main reason that I got 100 points from this game week as well was the fact that I triple captained with Haaland with 48 points. Didn't have to do the wildcard because I already picked a lot of the defenders most people wanted to get. I had already brought in Semenyo with one of my few transfers that I've used. And I decided to keep Bowen as well. That was another key decision in game week 5, that I kept Bowen rather than going for Joao Pedro, because since then, Bowen has scored 2 goals, Joao Pedro has scored none, and that has given me a lot of points as well. So Bowen was one of the players that looked like a flop after the first 3 game weeks. The only points he got in the first 4 game weeks was in game week 3 when I free hit it and didn't get those points anyway when he scored against Nottingham Forest. Almost scored twice in that game. But I kept faith in him. He's just a really good FPL asset. He always delivers, no matter how bad West Ham are. Bowen always delivers, and that was one of the main reasons that I brought him in. And I knew I could hold him for a long while as well, potentially, if I had to. And in my instance, just decided to not go for Joao Pedro. I just didn't feel good enough about Joao Pedro, because I think, as I usually say with transfers, it's not about who you sell, it's about who you buy. Who are you getting in? That's the main thing. Like, if you're frustrated with a player, they haven't performed, it doesn't really matter if you don't have any good replacements lined up for them. So for me, the start of the season, I've just focused on getting players that I knew I would want to have long term. Semenyo is one of those players. I really like the look of him. And what I did in game week 6 as well, bringing in Senesi, who was also someone that I should have had from game week 1. Someone who's been a DEFCON monster, who's gotten so many clean sheets as well, gotten some attacking returns. He's just looked amazing. Bournemouth looked a lot better than I expected. So 2 of my transfers have been Bournemouth players, because they looked like a much better performing team than I did expect them to be. I had them like really low in my table prediction, just because of the thing that I mentioned previously in this video, that I had them rated quite highly, but then once they sold Sabarni, I just lost faith in them, and I shouldn't have, because they've been super good this season. Iraola is such a good manager. So yeah, but I brought in Senesi for this game week, 7 points from him. Managed to get an assist and DEFCON points from this game week, despite him losing his clean sheet. So really happy with those points. 7 points from Semenyo as well this game week. So yeah, really good all around. 13 points from Gabriel, scoring that header. People who wildcarded didn't get the triple captain, but they did manage to get him Gabriel. But I had both Haaland available as the triple captain's pick, and I had Gabriel already in my team without having to use a transfer on him. So really happy with that in general. But yeah, did 3 transfers this game week. The plan was always to sell Mateta in game week 6. I said this also before the start of the season, that I was planning to sell Salah and bring in Haaland for this game week, because I figured game week 6, game week 7, game week 8, especially, I would want Haaland permanently in my squad. And especially with how the season has started, how good Haaland has been, that was a no-brainer for me to do in game week 6. And I'm really happy that I did, and I triple captain Haaland for 48 points. But again, bit of luck is also part of the process here. 2 goals in injury time from Haaland. That was really nice. I felt a bit unlucky before injury time because they had a penalty shot that wasn't delivered. Basically, they should have had a penalty in that game that they didn't get, and Haaland also missed a big chance before he scored his 2 big chances in injury time. But yeah, 48 points for him. Super happy with that. Bowen with another 9-pointer, another assist from Juve against Everton. Really happy with that. Brought in Senesi with 7 points. That's also really nice. Brought in Mbuemo as well, who didn't get me points this game week, but I brought him in for like a 2 game week short window because I knew from game week 8 onwards I would have some really interesting midfielders to choose from. So yeah, pretty happy with that decision as well, all things considered. Wouldn't really have had that many other opportunities to get a lot of points from game week 6 and 7 and then selling a player on from game week 8 onwards. So yeah, really happy with my decision making in general. This is where I made my major transfers, but most of that was just getting Haaland in, and then I figured like Senesi is someone that I also have to bring in because he's looked so good so far this season. I still think even now that he's 5.0, I brought him at 4.8. I still, even at 5.0, he is just way better value than 5.0. He is like the new sort of Milenkovic, Murillo guy from last season, playing for a really solid defense, getting DEFCON points, just getting a lot of points in general. He's on pace for like a really high score this season, one of the best all time for defenders actually. So he's still definitely worth the price. I'm really happy that I brought him in as well for game week 6, even though I should have had him earlier because I should have seen that Bournemouth would be good defensively because they have a good manager. They're really good at signing new players, and they have Senesi ready to come in. Despite not playing last season, he was a good replacement for Dean Howson in defense. So yeah, really happy with my transfers. For game week 6 as well, 100 points. This brought me up to 85k overall. I just skipped triple digits entirely, went from 1 million to 85k overall. Really nice game week, 3,697 without using my wildcard still as well, just using my triple captaincy at the right time. I've used 3 of my chips at this point. Triple captaincy, huge success. Free hit, I think, like with all things considered that I talked about in this video, huge success as well, just because of all the things that I managed to do with it. Not entirely just because I got like a decent scoring in game week 3. I could have had a much better scoring in game week 3 as well if I picked a better team, or if things had lined up differently. But just from what happened before and after, just being able to have Arsenal players already from game week 1, and all that stuff that I got extra from free hitting in game week 3, I think that was a huge success as well. Bench boost, as always, just goes terribly for me. Happened last season as well. I bench boosted a game week too early, and then the next game week with about the same fixtures and the same players, they got a much higher score. And this is what I say about bench boost as well. It is a bit random. Yeah, you can't really account for how many points you'll get on your bench boost, so don't worry too much about it and don't ruin your team before and after you use it. Yeah, that was something that I said several times in preseason as well. Worry more about where to use your free hit and how that can help your team before and after your free hit, rather than worrying about where to bench boost and potentially damage your team before and after the bench boost. So yeah, I think you got to look at the chips a bit differently than what people have done so far with how we have double chips this season. You have to look at it at a different way than we usually do, because usually we can have bench boosts when we have double game week players. We can free hit in either a double game week or a blank game week. There are just completely different rules to what we do this early in the season where we don't have double game weeks and blank game weeks. So yeah, that's a bit of a different thought process there in general. Then finally, going on to game week 7, my final game week so far, 1.7 million game week rank overall. Green arrow from 85k to 64k, really happy with that as well. One more transfer, another player that I thought that this is a player I need to have, or this is a team that I need to go for at this point of the season, and that was Arsenal. Game week 7 against West Ham at home. That looked like a prime fixture for a lot of points, especially defensively. I really like the look of Timber. He's just played every single game. He's been so attacking. And I've gone a game week too early, or one game week earlier than most people, because now people are looking at Timber, getting 11 points against West Ham, being so offensive, getting a penalty, just being in the box. Like, people actually get their eyes open now because he got 11 points. But he's shown that previously in the season. Game week 1 through game week 6, I've done a review for every single game week so far, and every single time I look at Timber and I look at him, and he's just in such really, really good positions. Had that major score against Leeds in game week 2 as well, where he got 2 goals and 1 assist. He's really good in the box in terms of getting into good positions on corners. He is super offensive as a right back, and he's super defensively solid as well. And he also has been pretty close to getting DEFCON points. Was like 1 DEFCON away from getting DEFCON points in this game week as well. So Timber's the one that I also looked at, someone that I really wanted in my squad, and really happy that I brought him in for game week 7. Got a lot of points from that. A lot of people wildcarded in game week 6 and brought in another goalkeeper. I could have done that as well. I could have upgraded Sells to Raya rather than selling Anderson, who's actually a pretty good defender, for Timber. But I figured Timber just has a much higher ceiling than Raya has. So I much rather want him as my double Arsenal defense rather than Raya. And I think that's going to help me in the end as well. So far, so good. 5 points more for Timber than Raya has gotten, because Raya is basically capped at 6 points. And that's why I don't really worry too much about the goalkeeper. I still have Sells. I'm not happy with him, of course, because he's been really bad, and Nottingham Forest are looking really terrible right now with Ange Postecoglou. But at the same time, goalkeepers don't really get that many points. I haven't lost out too many points either from not having like a different goalkeeper. I could have gone with Vicario, could have had a different goalkeeper entirely, who's gotten a lot more points, but it doesn't really matter too much. But yeah, I think the biggest mistake that I didn't do, that I did make, I guess, one of the biggest mistakes that I made was just investing too much in goalkeepers. 5.0 goalkeeper and 4.0 backup. That's too much. I want a 4.5 goalkeeper because I never get that right anyway. I always pick the wrong goalkeeper. And I'm going to change my goalkeeper for the wildcard. Most likely going to be Petrovic. And it's probably going to go badly as well. So, yeah, that's just me and goalkeepers in general. I don't really like thinking too much about goalkeepers because it doesn't really work out for me regardless anyway. But, yeah. Anyway, I'm really happy with the score all around. Semeni with another huge score here, of course. He is like the first transfer that I made because he was just looking at like way too good of a value pick at 7.4 million is what I brought him in for. Now he's 8.0, so yeah, he's just fantastic and someone that I really like for probably the entirety of the season. So far so good with my team in general. 64k overall as it stands right now. Looking at my team and the players that I've had since game week 1 that I might keep the whole season, there are a couple good candidates. Gabriel I've had since game week 1. He's most likely going to stay the entire time because Arsenal is just so good defensively, and he's just someone that I mentioned several times can either get a clean sheet or a goal or both in any given game week. And now even DEFCON points you can get in any given game week. So Gabriel is just a fantastic player all around. Rodgers I'm definitely going to sell at some point. He just has been really bad, but I kept him for the Burnley game. I got at least 5 points from him this game week. Other than that, Grinders I might keep long term. Richards I might keep long term as well, and Dubravka I might keep long term. But other than that, I think I'm going to sell most of the players that I've brought that I didn't have from game week 1 at least onwards. Semenyo is someone that I'm going to keep for a long time. Senesi I'm going to keep for a long time as well, most likely the entirety of the season at this point, because they are just really good value picks. And that leaves me less spots where I need to make transfers every single game week. And that's like one of the other things that I thought about in preseason, that I want to do as many like high-end potential transfers as possible. Just save transfers for the essential players. Don't worry too much about having a player for like 4 game weeks and then selling him again. I've done that with Mbuemo, of course, because I had to sell Salah to bring in Haaland. This is like one of the few like short-term punts that I'm going to make this season with Mbuemo, who got 2 points in game week 6 and then 6 points in game week 7. Not too bad, not the worst, not the best. But that was like always going to be a short-term thing just to get in Haaland permanently in my team. And I'm going to make another adjustment. I might keep him more for a little bit more. It just depends what I do this next game week. I'm going to get to that in a different video next game week. Not next game week, not next week, as we're in an international break. So I have more time on me to make those types of videos. But for now, pretty happy with how my season went. This is the story of how I've started to get into the top 100k already this season, which I'm really happy with. And I hope I'm going to do better from this point onwards as well. I still haven't used my wildcard chip. Really happy with that as well. That was always the plan, to keep that until game week 13, when I'm going to use it when fixtures turn, especially for City and Liverpool. I'm going to try to triple up on both those teams and still have a pretty solid team around them as well. Potentially some Newcastle players as well, which I've neglected so far. That is like one of the goalkeeper transfers that I'm currently considering potentially sells to Pope, because that looks like a pretty decent transfer. Just getting Newcastle defenders in general, because they've just been super good defensively this season. So that is something that I'm looking to do potentially. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up my story so far, and tells you some things about my thought process in FPL. This is things that I've already talked about in previous videos, but I figured I should just make like a recap of all the game weeks so far and see how it's gone so far this season. So far so good. Really happy with the season, and I hope you can join me on this journey to #1 overall this season, which is my hope still. I don't think I'm not completely out of the running for winning FPL this season. but I think it's going to be a really tough thing to do because I still think it's like 80 points behind us, number one overall. I'm not quite sure. I haven't actually checked. But yeah, there's still quite a lot of ways to go, but I do think I have a pretty good start to the season. Number one overall is obviously super difficult, but top 10k, which is always my goal, looks pretty damn good so far this season, because I think 64k at this point before game week 10 is absolutely amazing. I'm really happy with that in general, especially with my wildcard still in hand, when a lot of people have used their wildcard. But speaking of wildcards, I'm going to make a video about whether you should wildcard or not in game week 8, or free hit it or not in game week 8. That's something that I do every single week now as well, and I try to at least, since we have so many chips this season. So be on the lookout for that. I still haven't made my review of Game Week 7 either. And that's also something that I really like to do, and something that I think helps me a lot in FPL, just watching the games. I call it FPL eye test for a reason, because I watch the games. I don't just use the numbers that I put on the screen for you guys. I watch the games with my own two eyes, and I see what's happening in between the lines, and I see some trends that I do like and don't like with certain players. So that also helps me with what I end up doing in my transfers as well. I told you already with Semenyo what I saw from him the first few game weeks, what I saw with Timber, what I knew from Senesi and his points potential. It also goes the other way. The fact that I didn't go for Joe Pedro in game week 5 was the fact that I still was like a bit hesitant with him, because most of his points at that point of the season had been through corner goals, which I thought was like a bit like fluctuating. I don't think corner goals are something that you can really rely on too much with attackers, at least. Like defenders, that's like basically the only source of goals that you do get when you're picking defenders. But when it comes to attackers, I don't think you should rely on headed goals from corners, and that's what usually Joao Pedro got from the first few game weeks. That's why he had such a good start to the season. But that's also something that teams can easily look at and adjust to, and make sure that he doesn't score as easily from corners, because he was just left wide open the first few game weeks. And that's something that Premier League teams have looked at and rectified at this point. And that's why I didn't go for Joao Pedro, because I didn't think those points were going to be sustainable for the long term. So yeah, a lot of the different technical FPL stuff in this video. I hope it was something that you can take to heart and help you in your future decision making. I'm also gonna do, of course, videos every single game week about a lot of different stuff. So yeah, if you like what you've seen so far this video, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll get to more subscribers, which is always nice. And hopefully I can get to a higher place in the standings as well by the end of the season in FPL. That's my goal for this season to be top 10k, potentially even better. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. See you next time. Bye bye.